Raise the Roof is a coalition. It was led by the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, so all the trade unionists were involved. I was there as part of Focus Ireland, so Focus Ireland and other housing agencies were involved, like Dublin Simon, Threshold, you know, anybody who's in interest in housing. We also had the teachers' unions there, we had the nurses' unions there, everybody who is being impacted by the housing crisis. And as we know, that is absolutely everybody. There's not a family in this country who in some way isn't being impacted by the housing crisis. Obviously in Focus Ireland, I'm more interested in the homelessness sector, but I know that we cannot solve homelessness without sorting out the housing crisis.
Well, let's talk about this, Rory.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, we're going to be here for how long? Why, in God's name? Because it's getting worse. We're over 11,000 people that we know are homeless in Ireland. It had been 10,000. Why can't we crack? Why can't we do anything about this housing crisis in Ireland?
Well, when you have the Tánaiste saying that, you know, the grass isn't greener abroad and claiming that, you know, rents are in Dublin and Ireland are no different than anywhere else in Europe, I was just looking up the stats there, and you compare a one-bedroom apartment outside the city centre across Europe. What is the highest? The most expensive in Europe is Dublin, 1,700. Paris, Rome, Paris, for example, 900. Really? 900 versus 1,700. Rome, 800. Vienna in Austria, 700. You know, it is this, you know, our rents are just way beyond anything else in terms of Europe. And we are not Vienna, we're not Rome, we're not, you know, Milan. No, we're a great city, great place to live and, you know, great community, but not in terms of those housing costs. So I think, you know, you look at that, you call it gaslighting, you know, you call it, if they're not really accepting that it's a crisis. And, you know, there was a motion put forward by the opposition to the government to declare the housing crisis an emergency. The government voted down. They refused to declare it an emergency.
What would that do?
Well, it would open up different powers that they could do. There is emergency powers that they can do. For example, borrowing. They can go outside the EU rules, borrow more. They can use more directly around planning and intervention. It gives them more powers to do things. That was during COVID. They drew on emergency powers to do things. For example, taking the private healthcare system on a temporary basis into the public one. We look at it here as well. There is, you know, construction of hotels, capacity going on. There's a private industry that's now saying, private construction industry saying they're now stopping building. You know, we're seeing a fall for next year.
So, I mean, well, because in the front of the Daily Mail just this morning, it was saying Leo Varadkar talked about giving tax breaks to builders, incentives for smaller landlords, trying to get Pascal O'Donoghue to open the purse strings. So is that because you're claiming that he pretty much was lying there about how cheap it is in Dublin compared to other countries? But do you think what he's saying there will make a difference?
Well, you see, this is the same policies that haven't worked. This idea of giving tax breaks to developers, trying to incentivize them to actually build, that's what we've been doing for 10 years. It hasn't worked. As I've argued over and over, the state has to build. The state has to develop a state construction company. It has to contract the builders to build on public land. We have it.